I wasn't really sure if I want to make this video, but I'm in too deep to not share some of my thoughts. So as some of you may know, Battlecats is currently having this event thing called Mission Impossible. They started with some just really basic promotional materials, but then it evolves into some kind of like this mystery case.
The special capsule machines being built for the Battlecats' 10th anniversary have been sabotaged, postponing the best of the best festival until further notice.
So yeah, if you haven't been around, essentially, supposedly in lore, in game or something, there was someone that's like messing with the capsule or trying to like hold off the best of the best, you know, because there's the new Uber that's going to come out. And so they've been having these animations and all those good stuff on Twitter and Instagram to try to promote this.
Happens with the Capsule Fest. There's this.
And so that is their current advertisement campaign. They have 10 suspects lined up and is putting a bunch of clues in game as well as on social media. There are ways for you to find these hints in game, as well as in the end, you're going to have to accuse the suspect by buying a rare ticket. So you have to buy a rare ticket to choose who you want to accuse. If you accuse correctly, you'll get 5 extra bonus tickets, and if you accuse wrong, you'll get 3 bonus rare tickets. For $1, that's a pretty good price, regardless of whether you guess correctly or not. But of course, I'm not really exactly here to save up money. I want to be correct. And frankly, I think that's also in the case of a lot of people too. I mean, 2 different rare tickets is nice, but you know what's nicer? Laughing at other people for being wrong. I mean, even right now, I'm not even sure if I'm going to buy the accusation ticket, but I think it's just fun because Ponos doesn't really do these sort of like big events that much. The latest one they did was Outcast, and that's also pretty much the only one really. And so I just really want to play along. But yeah, let's go through the hints one by one and where did you find the hints. So in here, in game, you can find these hints, and for this one, this is the first clue. According to the CIA at Cat Intelligence Agency, we have good reason to believe that the double agent is an enemy in disguise. Sick of constantly losing battles to the ever-growing cat army, they sabotage the capsule machine to slow the growth of your cat army. I know we've just gotten into the hints and this is the first hint, but I do want to start off by saying this is the worst hint ever. And I'll get to it later. I know this is kind of like a flavor text. This doesn't really help us accuse anyone in particular, but this invalidates a lot of the later hints. We'll get into it a little bit. You find this hints by going to the daily 10th anniversary birthday cake stage and then go to the information setting. And then clue 2 mentions that spirit gum residue was found on one of the tools, which means that the culprit was wearing a mask of some sort. Now, looking at the hint, it's pretty obvious that there's pretty much only one unit that has a mask. Like really, there's only Evil Cat, right? And I think everybody also immediately thinks of Evil Cat when they see this clue. But let's not get too hasty, right? This clue is pretty vague still and doesn't really strictly rule any of the suspects out, because spirit gum is also usable in a lot of different ways than just mask. You can also use it, for example, to attach fake hair, or maybe you can also attach something like this to your face better. It is less likely to be used on like hats, but who knows really. And this might be a little bit reaching, but it is technically maybe also possible to attach Nerd's glasses, because Nerd doesn't really have proper ears to rest the glasses, so maybe the mask of some sort is really just misleading, right? But who knows. You find this clue by going to the 10th memorial event capsule and then checking the gacha information. And then the next hint is that the CCTV footage have determined that the double agent is black and white. Clue here is also a little bit questionable on why you would think that the agent is black and white exactly, but if we just take their word for it, this does rule out Evil Cat. Evil Cat clearly has red mask, and you might say it is possible that, oh, what if Evil Cat doesn't use its mask? But it's a bit unlikely, I would say. This does also technically kind of rule out Jamira, but Jamira's red part of the shirt is really small, so I'm actually a little bit on the fence. But Evil Cat is definitely ruled out. Jamira might be ruled out. Finding this clue is actually pretty difficult because you get it from the help option, frequently asked questions, and how do I find clues. I'm not sure how someone got that far, but that is pretty hidden, all things considered. Feels like they're not really thinking that we're that stupid, if that makes sense, despite, you know, Battlecats being a kid's game. And I think that's what got me into this quite a bit, because I'm like, wow, no kid would actually get to that without really like having quite a deep research into that. So that's interesting. The next clue is that the culprit seems to have intimate knowledge of the game, leading them to believe that the cats are probably the first 100 cat to enter the game. Now, this only actually rules out one cat, which is Trash Cat, since Trash Trash is a very recent cat, but everybody else here are the first 100 cats in the game. Now this is where I have problem with the first clue, because it makes no sense that the culprit is the first 100 cats to enter the game, but then clue 1 says that it's an enemy in disguise, so it's probably not even a cat. But then why would they say that it's the first 100 cats to enter the game? That makes no sense. So I'm just gonna ignore the first clue for this one. And then the next clue is that according to the scene of the crime, there were remnants of a mysterious odor. Now, mysterious odor is also kind of questionable because odor can mean maybe a bad odor, maybe can be a good odor, who knows? This does feel like it's pointing towards Trash Cat, but Trash Cat is already ruled out, so it can't be trash. So this clue is very vague, and I feel like most of the cats can have their own cases for it. But for the vague clues, we're going to get back into them a little bit later after we go through all of the clues. Just keep this one in mind. Also, this clue is found through, once again, the help button and then going to hints. And then the next clue, this is a pretty big one because I believe this is the one that rules most of the cats out. We have reasons to believe that this cat must be attainable via cat tickets. Hence its disdain for the capsule machine, that it is not likely to be a cat you can acquire with cat foods or by completing levels. Now, cat tickets can be silver and rares, and although they don't necessarily specify it in the text, they do specify both of them in the images. So I would say this still keeps any of the normal units, but any units that drops from cat food or from completing level is out, which means that Ninja, who is a purchasable special cat, is out. And although they're already ruled out, this just gives a second double cross for Evil and Trash Cat. And then the rest are all either gacha units or basic units, so they are staying here. You get this clue from the 10th anniversary memorial parade event information, like the one on the bulletin board thing. And then next hint is that there is only one set of paw prints found at the scene, so it's a rogue agent acting alone. This does basically make you go, oh, this can't be like multiple people, right? So this might not rule out anybody specifically, but it is also technically possible that this might rule out Delinquent, because Delinquent has stand. If we count the stand, then technically Delinquent might not really be working on his own, but also in JoJo's universe, stands are manifestations of oneself. It's not exactly someone else, and I don't think they really leave like a paw print either, because it's kind of like a spirit, it's like a ghost. So I'm not actually sure if this is supposed to eliminate Delinquent, but I kinda doubt it. I feel like this is just telling the players that like, hey, there can only be one suspect. So for now, Delinquent is still a potential suspect. You get this clue from going to the Meow Medals information. And then the next one is the partial print from the offending cat. This is the one that Clue 7 was talking about earlier, but there's really nothing here that can be deciphered in my opinion. I tried messing with the exposure a little bit or something like that, but it doesn't really give anything good. I don't really see anything hidden from this picture or anything, so I'm not actually sure if this is supposed to give us a clue on who to rule out or something like that. But I thought about, well, maybe this could potentially rule out Jamira, because Jamira's hands are not normal. This hand clearly cannot leave that paw print, but also at the same time, I don't know if this feet technically counts as that, but his feet is like flat, so I kinda doubt it would leave that paw print. But I'm honestly not sure if Tono's actually thought that far, because pretty much all of the other cats also have like just stubby arms and stubby legs anyway, so I don't really know, but this does give me another case that it's probably not Jamira. You get this hint from like the cat food store page, but I personally didn't see it when on my Android for some reason, but it is there for a lot of other people. And then the next hint says that the motion sensor in the capsule machine were unable to pick up the culprit's movement, which must have mean that they have relatively slow movement speed. Now, relatively slow movement speed is very vague, because I don't know what counts as being slow or not, but pretty much most of these cats are relatively slow, with the exception of Thief Cat, because Thief Cat is actually the fastest one out of everyone here. And so even though we don't know what relatively slow movement speed is, we can still rule out the fastest one in the list, which is Thief Cat. The rest are quote-unquote relatively slow, so it's a bit hard to say. You found this from a testing announcement urgent message on like one of the information banners. And then next one, Clue 10 is actually a Morse code. It is pretty funny. It's a Morse code of Cat and Hanks. This cipher translates into, it has been determined that no weapon was involved. The culprit used only tools and their bare paws. Now, this is also kind of a vague one because I don't know what counts as weapon and what counts as tools. Like, is hacker's laptop a tool but not a weapon? But you can also kind of use it for like cyber attack. Is witch's wand a tool or a weapon? It's not exactly a weapon, but it's not exactly a tool either, and it can be both a tool and a weapon at the same time. Of course, this probably rules out Evil Cat again for the third time, but that's not helping us. Is witch's wand a weapon and not a tool? Because a witch's wand can be a tool, and a hacker's laptop can be a weapon. So this is very vague. I don't know what this hint is supposed to be, you know? You get this hint from actually yet another one in help option, and then there's an option for CIA, which is kind of funny. And then the next hint, the 11th hint, is that fur was found on the scene, and while DNA results are inconclusive, this should help weed out the suspect with scales made of bones or metal. This is very clearly made to rule out Fish Cat, since Fish is the only one with scales, and scales were clearly mentioned here. And then next one, clue 12 is also a weird one because it's in Japanese. It says that the culprit is right under our noses, hiding in 2 of your past social posts. This is very weird because there's already so much different social posts right now, and they keep on updating it, and pretty much everybody has appeared multiple times. So then another question is, what do they mean by hiding in 2 of your social posts? Does that mean that they're not only just in the social post, but is actively trying to hide from the camera? Maybe they mean this is only purely before the whole breaking news thing happened? Or do they also include some of the new ones after the accusation, like this one, which has hacker like kinda hiding behind the door? Like, we also got this one where it's about Ninja Cat, or this other one about Thief Cat stealing a wallet. But does that really count as hiding? Or what about this one? This picture has Delinquent behind some airplane seat. Like, does this count as hiding? What about this one? There's Ninja, Fish, and Delinquent out in the open. Does that count being in the social post or hiding at all? Or this one where Delinquent is at the back and Jamira is also back here and Wish is right here and Mohawk is right out in the open? Does this count as hiding? A lot of this makes very little sense and I don't really understand. I have no idea what they mean by hiding in the past 2 social posts because pretty much all of these contains like every single suspects. So pretty much everybody has appeared like at least 5 times by now. It is very confusing. In their social medias, they also say that there are hints scattered on their social post, but looking around, I don't really see anything interesting. Actually, we'll get back into it a little bit later. Let's just finish our hints first, and then we'll get back to their social media post. Also, this hint is on the event calendar. Now, clue 13 does not actually help us. This only teases the new best of the best Uber, which I'm sure most of you already know who she is gonna be. They're just saying that the motive is to sabotage the new Uber rare. This doesn't weed out anyone at all. The next hint is that in order to hold the tools or weapon, they probably have hands or paws. But this one is a little bit confusing. There's this social media post from Ponos which shows that the tools are being held through machines, which might clue in on hacker, but this also means that you don't necessarily need hands or paws to use the tools because you can just use the machines. But let's assume we take their word for it and that the cat has hands or paws, which in that case you might say that this probably rules out Witch Cat because Witch doesn't actually have hands. But if your reasoning is that they need to be able to hold the tools or weapons, then this doesn't necessarily rule out Witch Cat either because Witch Cat is holding a wand. She doesn't even need a hand to use the tools or weapons. So what gives? The rest of the suspects does have hands though. Mohawk have hands, Delinquent, Titan, and Hacker have hands. I know you might say that like, oh, you don't need to think that hard, but also this is the same event that puts hints on frequently asked questions. I feel like I should be able to think a little bit more critically, but I'm still going to question Witch Cat's validity with this. This one is easier to get though. You only get it from the cat guide question. And finally, the last one is actually also a very interesting one. It says that it appears traces of a plasticizers were found, leading the CIA to believe that perhaps there were plastic explosives that were involved to blow up the warehouse door. Now, this is kind of confusing because if you recall hint 10, it says that it has been determined that no weapon was involved, that the culprit only used tools and their bare paws. But this would contradict the new hint, given that plastic explosives are probably weapons. Unless you count that the plastic explosives are tools? But that makes no sense, because if you count that as tools and not weapons, what the hell is even a weapon? These two hints contradict each other. But sure, let's ignore that for a second and just focus on the plasticizer and plastic explosives. Now, the easiest thing that this probably points out is Hacker Cat, because Hacker Cat's attack animation has missile. He launches a missile and then it goes off and then it explodes, right? So it's probably pointing to Hacker Cat. However, that is a problem because that would count as using a weapon. If Hacker Cat needs to use other people's missile to hack to blow up the door, then I feel like it also doesn't rule out anyone else because any of these cats could just buy an explosive. But you know what is also really funny about this hint? Is that, well, this hint says that Plasticizer is the one that is leading the CIA to believe that perhaps plastic explosives were involved. This means they're actually not sure if plastic explosives were actually involved, but the one that we know for certain is that there's traces of plasticizers. And you know what plasticizers are usually used for? That's right, hairspray. As you can see here, plasticizers used in hairsprays. Maybe not every hairsprays, but plasticizers are sometimes used in hairspray. But why is that important? Well, it's because we have this whole animation that Ponos have as the first time where Mohawk Cat clearly used hairspray. So this straight up could also potentially try to point towards Mohawk Cat for using hairspray that has plasticizers on it. Again, maybe a little bit far, but also having a hairspray is a tool more so than a weapon. A hairspray is a tool that can be used as a weapon rather than a weapon that is used as a tool. So even though thinking that plasticizer thing points out to Mohawk, it may be a little bit too far, at the same time, this doesn't contradict the 10th hint. And maybe a hairspray can't be used to blow up warehouse door, but also who knows, maybe the warehouse door was made out of like easy to burn wood or something. That's all of the hints. Oh yeah, the last hint is also on one of the event information for the 10th anniversary Memorial Parade Part 2. So these are the suspects that we have right now. These 5 are the only ones that aren't completely strictly ruled out by the hints. Although Jamira and Witchcat does have some questionable hints that might rule them out. So Jamira and Witchcat are unlikely. Meanwhile, Mohawk, Delinquent, and Hacker doesn't really have anything that is against them specifically. So let's get back on some of the previous hints that are still vague. I have a whole note for it. Okay, this is a lot of text, but just bear with me here. Clue number 2 is the one that points out spirit gum usage. As I mentioned, spirit gums can be used to attach mask, wigs, or false facial hairs, which means that this could potentially point out Mohawk or Hacker's glasses. But it is unlikely for it to be Delinquent's hat, and Jamira doesn't really have a mask or any headwear, but Witch does have a hat, but it is once again potentially unlikely. The one that is more likely to have this is either Mohawk or Hacker. So this means that Mohawk have a clue against him and Hacker also have a clue against him. However, this could also mean option 2, which is that, hey, remember that the first clue mentions that this is probably just an enemy in disguise? I'm actually kind of worried that the second clue about the spirit gums simply means that, like, oh, the cats that you see are actually like an enemy with a mask and not actually a cat, and therefore it doesn't really matter whether they have mask or not because everybody could be using a mask. But let's just assume that that's not the case, which in that case we can potentially assume that it's either Mohawk or Hacker. Clue 5 being that there are mysterious odor. Now this is also extremely vague because, well, Mohawk could have odor because of his hairspray, Delinquent could have odor because he's a weeb, Jamira could have odor because he likes fish, Witchcat could have odor because she messes with potions, and Hacker could have odor because he's a neat. So I don't know what to make out of this. I'm going to assume that this doesn't rule anyone out specifically, nor does it give any extra suspicion for anyone because literally anyone could have a quote-unquote mysterious odor. Next up is clue 10, which says that there's no weapons, only tools and bare paws. But as I mentioned earlier, what counts as tools and what counts as weapons? Again, the closest thing that this could potentially rule out is Witchcat's wand, but again, this could be a tool, so I can't completely rule Witchcat out either. Because if we count a wand as a tool, then we might also be potentially ruling out Hacker's laptop, which can be a tool and a weapon at the same time. A magic wand and a laptop functions pretty much similarly. You just do magic and then things come out, but the magic can be used to attack, or the magic can also be used as a tool. Going back a little bit, actually there's also another clue about the relatively slow movement speed. We already ruled out Thief Cat for being too fast, but if you want to go through the fastest to the slowest, Mohawk Cat's speed and Witch Cat's speed is 10, while delinquent and Jamira's speed are 8 and hacker's speed is 4. And so hacker is the slowest out of them all, and Mohawk is the fastest as well as Witchcat, but also 10's speed is pretty slow anyways. So once again, this is vague. We don't know if this really points out to anyone or rule out anyone. Clue 14 is also another one where it's about having hands or paws, but again, everyone here has hands or paws to use tools, except for Witch, who doesn't have hand but can still hold a wand anyways, which means that she doesn't even need hands to use tools, and potentially the hint is wrong. But if we just take the hint at face value of having hands or paws, then potentially Witchcat is ruled out again. Then clue 15 is about the plasticizer, and while, like I said, technically anyone can buy explosives, if we just assume that the explosive have to do something with the cat, then again, the two main suspects would be Hacker because Hacker have missile, and Mohawk because Mohawk have hairspray. But again, this does bring up the question that if Hacker Cat uses a missile, then that's a weapon, and that would contradict hint 10. And so this could potentially dock off points from Hacker Cat while still giving full points for Mohawk Cat. So alright, let's just assume that Jamira and Witch Cat are not culprits just to make things easier. Then our three main suspects would be Mohawk, Delinquent, and Hacker, with Delinquent being the least likely, and Mohawk and Hacker may be on a similar level of being likely. Then in that case, let's check clue 12, which is about hiding in the past two social posts. Let's go through the Battle Cat social posts to see if we get any hints. But starting off, I would just say that most of these posts really doesn't give you anything good. I mean, the posts are cute even though the memes are questionable in how funny they are. Most of these doesn't really give us any good clues. Like, I don't think this is supposed to rule out anyone or to give a good case against anyone. But for some reason, this one post in particular struck me as interesting. Although this meme is really bad, if you zoom in here, you know, there's a bunch of just mumbo jumbo here in the background, which I don't think is supposed to really mean much. But then I look at this. So as you can see here, there is a vertical banner over there on the left and a horizontal banner in the middle. And then there's an arrow pointing towards a cat. Now, I did thought that this maybe is a hint towards the suspect, but I couldn't really find anything solid. We can see that the suspect is near a tent and is the opposite side of the vertical banner. But the vertical banner here is at the same side as the tent, so that's a bit weird. This one doesn't have a tent, so we don't really know which side is it, but even then, the only one here is like Jamira, which we probably already rule out. I guess this one has Delinquent near the side of the tent, but is on the same side as the vertical banner. There is also this post, which does have the camp on the left side, and there is Mohawk on the left side. But this post is supposed to show when the culprit hits Time Traveler with a sleeping dart. And so this begs the question that, hey, if the culprit is the one that hits Time Traveler with a sleeping dart, does that mean that the culprit is not indiscreet? Because if that's the case, then we can rule out Delinquent, who's up front over here, as well as Mohawk Cat, who's at the back right there. And you know who's not in there? Nerd Cat. And so this potentially gives an extra case for Nerd Cat. But then the culprit we're searching for is mainly just about the broken capsule machine. And so this begs the question, one, is it even the same guy? I mean, logically that would be the case, but somehow it also feels like it's too easy if you can just determine the suspect on who's not in the screen right now. But it is still a valid logical explanation, right? To maybe, you know, well, Nerd Cat's not on the screen and therefore he could potentially do it. But also we can see that Nerd Cat is helping with the gacha or something like that, and so it is also somewhat less likely. But then there's also the problem with Nerd Cat's hint 15 and hint 10 going against each other. And then what if we also have to consider that maybe the culprit is actually using some sort of crazy Detective Conan mechanism to like activate the sleeping dart from afar, and then they're actually still in the video just to clear off their name. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so vague. None of this is really a good complete hint. And I guess that's like also kind of good because it does bring up like a lot of interesting discussion between who the culprits will be. Because I suppose if it weeds out everyone but one, it does make it a little bit too easy. It is more interesting to have the suspects to be between 2 or 3. But also, man, I wish it's a little bit clear, because even though the most likely culprit is Mohawk and Hacker, it could technically still be Delinquent because nothing is completely against Delinquent's case. Hell, at the same time, it could still be Witch if her wand is a tool and not a weapon, and if her feet can leave paw prints, and since she doesn't actually need hands to use tools, it technically could still be Witch. It could even technically be Jamira if maybe the black and white is because Jamira's facing away from the camera, and therefore you only see the back of the shirt and not the front, which in that case, you know what I mean? And so frankly, I don't really know who to accuse. I was actually kind of hoping that they would drop some more hints, but it seems like that is the last of it. And so we really only get to work with what we have here. Generally, I believe the most popular consensus is Hacker Cat, but I'm not gonna tell you on who to vote. I want you to make up your conclusion on your own. Because frankly, if I were to actually choose a suspect, I would actually go with Mohawk. Because the can of plasticizer thing is just too interesting of a hint. I mean, I know it's vague, but also I just like the idea that Ponos puts the plastic explosive thing as like a red herring, because the only true evidence is the traces of plasticizer. It doesn't actually tell you that they found plastic explosives. They only believe that the plastic explosives were involved, but the only true evidence that they have is the traces of plasticizer. And so it might not be Hacker's missile. And that's why they make a whole animated short about Mohawk using his hairspray and all that just to show that he uses plasticizer. And I feel like that's a smarter thing, which, you know, it might be like not really correct because this is a game for kids and therefore they might not make the hints that crazy complicated, but I like the idea, and therefore I want to believe that maybe Mohawk is the culprit after all. I mean, just look at his devilish wink right here. Look at this guy. You think that he's innocent? It's crazy. But yeah, I can't really tell you on who exactly it is. We do have to wait until the 14th to actually know the true culprit. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. Who are you going to vote? Is anyone maybe going to vote Delinquent after all? Or maybe Jamira or Witch Cat? Or maybe it is Evil Cat after all. He's so evil that he actually goes through all of the hints. But yeah, this isn't the usual high quality video that I've been doing recently, but I do want to get this out of the way because I think this whole thing has been interesting, and it's like pretty damn high quality stuff too. Like all of the animations they've been doing and like the voiceovers and everything has been really cool. This is something that not even JP actually ever have, so it's kind of just cool to have something like this on EN. They really put a good amount of effort for this just to promote like Trixie, but you know, it's like it's kind of cool to see like the whole community going around and like discussing everything and all these stuff because of these stupid little Easter egg hunt that Ponos have. I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. I actually wonder if this is success for the campaign because they also like hire a bunch of like top streamers to promote their stuff. Like look at this. This guy's Toast, which is a pretty big streamer, played this for the sake of the Mission Impossible campaign, and then he gets completely destroyed by Cats of Cosmos. And not only just him, we also got Iron Mouse, which is insane. She's like the biggest streamer on Twitch right now. That is crazy. But yeah, I do hope that like Battle Cats actually gains like a good amount of success from this campaign because I would love to see more of this. This has been really interesting, even if it's not like some kind of crazy interesting new advent stage or whatever. I think this is cool. I think I like this. Keeps the game like fresh, you know? But yeah, I think that is about it for this video. I wish you luck on who to accuse, and I'll catch you another time. See ya.